hello and welcome back to another video, and today, as you can see, that time of year has come around again. It is time to look at the upcoming season mod for the MotoGP game. Of course, this time it is MotoGP 26, as of course you can see. Also put the mod by biker underneath just so you can differentiate that it definitely is the modded version of the game, as we have been using with the test mod throughout this year. But without any further ado, let's get straight into getting through the rider lineup and seeing what has changed. So if we head into time trial mode straight away, you can see, of course, the first rider we've got selected, Jorge Martin, has got some changes. Of course, the number 89 returning to the front of the bike, of course losing his number 1 to Marc Marquez this season. So of course he returns to the 89 and we've put that on the front of the Aprilia. We have to scroll quite a long way down for the first real change. Of course we had that number change for Martin, but that's pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. But the first rider transfer, of course, is Toprak Razkatioglu, who's come across from World Superbikes aboard the Pramac Ducati for next year, and of course having to give up his famous 54 since Aldeguer's already got that one. So we've got this number 7 on the front that is shown off in the post-season test today. There is the Turkish flag on it, but it is hard to see because of just the way the camera is placed on this bike. It covers up part of the Turkish flag, which is obviously unfortunate, but you can see it is in fact there. If he transfers teams in career mode, you may see it, depending, of course, where the number is placed on the bike. And, of course, in like menus and things like that, when you see his number, of course, it will be present. As for leathers, nothing too special, just the Dainese Prima Pramac, which we've seen on Miller all season anyway, just with his logo put on the back. And for the face, I've kind of done my best here. I've sort of taken one of the custom face models, put on another texture as well that had a bit of a beard, because we know Toprak does have that. But yeah, it's obviously limited what we can do with the faces, especially for someone that's not even in the game currently. And of course, finally, the other change that we've got in the MotoGP class is Diogo Moreira, the now reigning Moto2 world champion, moves up with the LCR Honda team. It does remain to be seen what the livery will be for him. It has been confirmed that it's not Idemitsu, so as you can see, I've kind of just reverted to the Castrol livery that's obviously used by Zarco. We have no idea really what's going to be used, because in the testing today he was just using the generic Honda with most of the logos taken off, so obviously that didn't really give us much of a clue. Rumours about potentially some Brazilian oil companies maybe sponsoring this other bike, but for now, of course, we don't know that, so we have just stuck with the Castrol. But of course that can always change in the future, but the initial version of the mod will 100% have the Castrol bike. So of course we've got the set of Revit leathers for him there, which I believe is also changing at some point in next year, but for now, again, sticks to the bike. If we look at that number as well, they're using in a pre-season on the front of the bike. And with that, MotoGP is already complete. It usually takes longer to go through the MotoGP class, but of course, very, very few changes. So we'll move on to Moto2 next, and we've got Barry Baltus first on the list. Obviously, no change for Barry there. He's going to stay with the Fantic Racing team. But alongside him is Tony Arbolino, of course, taking the seat of Aaron Canet. I don't know if this is 100% officially confirmed, but it is happening. Of course, he has confirmed his departure from the Pramac team, so I pretty much confirmed that this was the move that was going to happen. I think I may refrain from going into the showroom for any more of these, because the game seems to have a bit of a bug at the moment that once you've gone into the showroom, everything goes dark, and it's just going to be a little bit tricky to try and work with. So there you go, that's the first rider transfer in Moto2. Next up then, we've got Angel Piqueras, of course, moving up to Moto2 from Moto3, staying with the same team though, the MSI team. Ignore the fact it says Ortola on the seat. That is just a bug. At the moment, I don't have him having an extra logo, so it just uses whoever was last. And of course, that was Ortola, had it before, so that's why that's showing up. But you can, of course, see the 36 on the front. Again, looks quite familiar for Piqueras, really, because he is just moving up to the Moto2 version of his current team. The title sponsor is, of course, changing. Now, this bike, I believe, is going to be a Calyx in real life for next year, so I think there'll probably be an update released to the mod to actually change that from the Bosco to the Calyx, because that's something that's announced pretty late, and obviously it'll take a decent while to sort of remake the livery, so I think for now we'll put it out with the Bosco, but we'll update it with the Calyx when that time comes. The next rider transfer we've got then is Luca Lunetta, of course, moving up also from Moto3 onto the, well, I don't know how to call this team, because they started off being called Team HDR at the start of this year for some reason. Obviously been the speed up team for many years before that, and then they kind of changed it again midway through the season. In the game, still called Team HDR, but probably will change that to reflect the name they're using as we went through the season. They started to be referred to as Speed RS as the rest of the season went on, so I don't know what was going on with the naming of this team this year. They changed it twice, despite not changing it for about over a decade before that. But there you go, whatever, still the same team. The speed up team, we've got Luca Lunetta, of course, moving up from Moto3, as I said. Next up then, we have got people moving just around within the class itself. So you can see we've got Aaron Caddett here moving to the Mark VDS Bosco Scuro bike. And alongside him, he is going to have Dennis on shoes. It's going to be a strong team, this one, I think. Will be definitely one fighting for the championship. Obviously, it depends how well the Bosco Scuro performs, but I think both riders are pretty strong. And we've seen in the hands of Dixon, especially this year, that the Mark VDS Bosco Scuro combination can work at some tracks. And when it does work, it is pretty hard to beat. Next up then, we have got Philip Salach, of course, moving over to the OnlyFans American racing team. This one was announced pretty late. Obviously, it looked like initially Ramirez was going to stay at the team, but some sort of contractual wranglings have occurred, and it's ended up with Salach here. So poor old Salach, to be fair, he went from VDS. I think he thought he was going to go to RW, and then ended up at American Racing. So been bounced around a little bit, but has found a new home. Back on a Calyx again, so will be interesting to see how he gets on there. Next rider we have then is a pretty new face, definitely a new one to me. I've heard the name before, Alberto Ferrandez. And he is taking Tony Arbolino's seat on the Blue Crew Pramac Moto2 bike. Be interesting to see how he goes on. Don't know a lot about Alberto, to be fair. I know he did a wildcard at Bizarro earlier on in the year, and he used a number 93 there. However, usually he uses the number 54, so that's what we've gone with, his typical 54 font that he uses. He couldn't use 54 on that weekend because Passini had it. Next up then, we have got Daniel Munoz, of course, featured very heavily this season. Really, really good on the IO bike, filling in for Dennis on shoe quite a bit. He's moving across to Italtrans, and I've got to say, actually, the blue number works really well with the Italtrans. I actually made his number last year, so it was quite simple because he was supposed to be on the grid last year, of course, with the stop and go team, whatever they decided to be that particular week. But of course, that was they were stop and go, then they were going stop, and then they were Pertamina, and yeah, it got a bit confusing. And then they were Precanos for a brief time as well. So yeah, he's supposed to be there, so I already had the number made, just changed the colours to match what he's been using in the IO bike this year, and honestly I've kept those because they suit really, really well with this Italtrans bike. Next up then, we have got Sergio Garcia, of course, was in the game originally because he was on the QJ motorbike at the start of the season, the MSI team. Dropped pretty early on, but of course, rider lineup's never get updated in these games, aside from that one time with Alonso Lopez. It's already in the game, so just transferred him across to the Grassini team, and also given him back his old number colour using in the previous seasons rather than the sort of the MSI blue gradient one. Which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you will see later on when we look at some of the other MSI riders, I'm sure. He'll be partnered up alongside Alonso Lopez, and this is what I'm quite excited about actually, because Lopez, he's shown some fantastic pace in Moto2 over the seasons, but it always feels like he's held back a bit by the Bosco Scuro, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on the Calyx, which does appear to be the dominant bike once again. I have just noticed as well the logos on the helmet. I will go through and sort all that stuff out as well before the mod comes out. They've just got their base helmets on at the moment, so I will have to remove any logos that don't make sense. For example, the Bosco Scuro logo, not going to be using that on a Calyx. I don't think the employers will be too happy about that one. Next up then, we have got Jose Antonio Rueda, and probably won't spend too long on Jose, to be fair, because, well, he's gone from a Red Bull KTM team to another Red Bull KTM team, so not huge changes there. The biggest difference is the number. Of course, using 99 in Moto3. Can't use that in Moto2 because Huertas has already got that one, actually. So I just thought, we'll flip it upside down, make it a 66. It's probably the easiest thing to do. It's free to take. Well, I will change it, of course, if he doesn't use this number. But of course, for now, the number he's going to use, so just stuck on the 66 because it doesn't clash with anybody. On to the final transfer now in Moto2, and you can see, of course, Taio Furusato moves up from Moto3 to Moto2 in a very similar vein, I guess, to Rueda. Not much to dwell on here. Same sort of colours that he's been in previously, just now on the Moto2 bike. So a couple of those throughout this category, actually. In fact, 3 out of the 4 Moto3 riders that came up all just stuck with their existing teams, which is good. I think it's good that the structures are working, but it's not as exciting to look at because it's like, well, we've seen him in Idemitsu colours plenty of times before. So that leaves us finally with Moto3. Of course, you can see Moto E at the bottom there. For now, Moto E will stay. I'll see about maybe replacing that with a Baggers class in the future, but the initial release of the mod not happening because typically I don't touch Moto E anyway. So if we go into the Moto3 class, first of all, we've got David Munoz. No need to sort of go over him there. But alongside him, we've got David Almanza moving across from the Leopard team. Of course, you can see the helmet there is the unbranded Leopard one. Depending on what brand he uses for next year, it may change that one. Of course, he did have one previously when he raced for Snipers that was different, but it was a different brand. So I always take the brand over the texture, if that makes any sense. He uses KYT helmets, so he has to have a KYT as far as I look at it. So next up then, we've got the guy that he just swapped with. So Guido Pini and David Almanza just swapped seats this season, which made things relatively simple. He moves across to the Leopard team, and you can see he has got a Leopard helmet. Doesn't quite match the style that they went for this year. The flag is slightly different, but I think it's pretty much bang on. It obviously still matches with it being the Leopard bike, and definitely a lot better than using the Red Bull one. Next up then, we've got our first rookie, Brian Uriarte, and you can see he has got that number 51 that he was using in those last few rounds of this season on the Red Bull KTM bike. Of course, with him being a new rider to the class and game, just go with the plain helmet, but it is of course the Shoei. I have just noticed a mistake there on his leather say RI on them, so I will try and fix that. That's part of the fun of these videos sometimes, to be honest. I've noticed mistakes that I could test these mods for hours and absolutely never noticed, so that's another one to add to the list there. Next rider we've got then is Hakim Dinesh, and there you go, that's the number I was talking about, the blue gradient, the light blue to the dark blue, or vice versa. It depends on, I guess, what side of the bed they get out on, but the MSI team, that seems to be their sort of trademark for this year. You'll see that, you won't see because we've gone past them already, but Yamanaka has something similar. So there you go, that's what we've applied for Dinesh, because that's what he was using when he did that stand-in ride for Yamanaka at the end of the season. Next up then, we have the return of Joel Esteban, and of course with that comes probably the most complete new rider that comes to the game, as we've got his helmet from last year to use, got his number from last year to use, even got his butt patch from last year to use, so we've got pretty much a full set for Esteban. In fact, I will show you that because it's probably worth sort of noting that usually when it's a new rider coming into the class category, don't give them the name on the butt, but there you go, he has got that on this occasion. Next new rider then we've got is Zen Mitani, and you can see the number on this one isn't quite right in terms of the way it's lined up, the size of it. You'll see the same thing for Vader Pratama next as well, so I think this is probably the only team I haven't gone through and done that for yet. If there are any actually as well, by the way, guys, you notice look a bit off, do let me know, because it's good to have people notice these kind of things. But yeah, not much to say, I guess, about Zen, to be fair. He's come in, he's got the regular leathers, regular livery for this bike, just need to sort out that number. As for Vader Pratama, you can see very much a similar thing. Now, for Vader, we've kind of made up the number. He uses number 9, I believe, in Junior GP, so that's why we've gone for the number 9, because that is available. But the font is pretty much custom. I saw an image of he had like a logo, an old logo that had like this sort of yellow, black, white sort of color scheme in that manner. So I just decided to make the number 9 in that kind of font, because I thought that's probably what he'd end up using. Something we can change, of course, if it needs be, but Vader, I think, is the only rider in this entire mod that hasn't done a racing Grand Prix before. But that'd be a stand-in, so it was a bit more tricky. But this year's the number of injuries, like all the Moto3 rookies basically did rides for their teams already, so we already had a little bit of information on what to go on. Speaking, of course, of the Moto3 rookies, we have got Casey O'Gorman, the Irishman, who's now finally coming up to Grand Prix, and quite a basic number for him. Just a yellow number 67. I believe he uses that because he was a big fan of Shaky Byrne, and I think Shaky Byrne is also his manager, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, of course, again, another one that we have well and truly seen already in a few Grand Prix, so not much to talk about there, and we'll see on the Honda this time, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Alongside him, of course, we have got Noah Detweiler. Of course, Paolo Silvicelli said that the seat was open for Detweiler. They'd come to an agreement for him to ride, and the seat will remain open for him if he wants it. Hopefully Detweiler does recover and return. Of course, we know he's relatively okay now, but it was a pretty horrendous injury to have to try and come back from. So for now, he's there in the mod, but of course, if he decides not to take the seat or whatever happens, it can change in the future. But for now, that's what's official, is that the seat is for him. Next up then, we have got Rico Salmella, and actually I was wrong about the Vader Pratama statement, because Rico also has not done a race in the Grand Prix paddock, so again for him, this number is completely made up too. This is just basically the kind of standard IO font, and just using his regular race number for that, which is 27. So if you're having a look at that one, I will go into showroom if necessary to look at this number here. It basically is the regular sort of IO style font that you tend to see sort of the big blocky letters, the outline in a colour, and then the outline in sort of the blacky purple colour, the Red Bull sort of backdrop. Why I went for blue, I just quite like the look of it. I think obviously it goes with the Finnish flag as well, with obviously the blue cross on there, and it just differentiates from those other IO numbers that you have. A lot of them use red, so just thought I'd do something a bit different for him. Next up then we have got Jesus Rios, and of course he did the last round of the championship. In fact, he may have done the last 2 rounds of the championship on the sniper's bike, and he used the number 45. Now usually he does use the number 54. Of course he couldn't use the 54 because of Riccardo Rossi already having that number, so I presume with Rossi leaving the paddock that he will use the number 54 this year. So we have just done the number 54 in this same font that was done on the 45 with the same colours, so the yellow and the purple. Actually, I quite like this this number, to be fair. Reminds me a little bit of Nagashima, the font when it was in the 45, but a lot of them are quite similar, quite generic, especially when they come through certain systems, but this one is, I quite like the styling of it. Next up then we have got Adrian Cruces, and of course we've seen him a few times this year in real life, the number 11 on the CIP bike, which of course he did do a few rounds on earlier in the season. The bike obviously is for everyone that's changed teams, I've just loaded a custom rider bike. That seems to be the Intervetten livery. I will probably change that, to be honest. I'll probably change that to match the Scott Ogden bike that you will see here, because I guess with Detweiler departing the team, that Intervetten sponsorship will go with him. So I suspect that we won't have that on the bike. So for the actual mod release, I think I will probably change that. Next up then we've got another rider, and finally back to someone that is not a rookie. Obviously lots of rookies in Moto3, as you would expect, with it being the lowest of the feeder classes. We've got Joel Kelso moving over to MLab, and I've got to say, again, I do quite like how the number suits with the bike, with the bit of orange there, obviously the little bits of the orange on the fleet safe and the little sort of chevrons that are around the bike. I quite like that one, and obviously it'll be interesting to see how Joel gets on the Honda. And finally, last but not least, we have got Marco Morelli, who is moving across to Aspar. Again, ignore the 10 you can see on the back there. I believe that is coming from Nicolo Carrara. I do know how to fix that. I fixed it for a couple of the riders already. It's just been, I think it's the same issue that Picaros had in the Moto2 clip, but that's the last rider that had an extra logo, so it just defaults back to that one. The number on the front is based on the one he's using at the MLAV team, because I actually made him for the MLAV team already for another mod that I haven't released yet. I updated the rider lineups, so I just took that and made it pink. Obviously, we've seen a few riders on this team use pink numbers before: Jake Dixon, David Alonso, see Maximo Aquiles that we're looking at here, and the blue that he was using, just you couldn't see it. You couldn't see it on the bike. So I think in real life you wouldn't be allowed to have both of these numbers pink, so that probably will change, but for now we'll keep it as pink. Of course, if Morelli does show off a new font with a new colour, tend towards that one. But yeah, that is pretty much everything. I think that is all the rider lineups confirmed as well. I don't think there'll be any future changes. Last year there was quite a few changes after I actually did the video. It was a little bit of a mess, but I think, to be fair, this time I think we are all done. So quite surprised we got it done quite early, so you won't have to wait as long as you usually do when I do these videos. You usually have to wait maybe a month or so, probably be a few days, a week maybe, till it's fully sorted, because I've got some finishing touches. Obviously you saw some bugs there, and obviously there's some fine tuning to do with things like rider performance that obviously I don't really show off in this video. Actually, there is one last little surprise for you, and I will cut straight into a time trial and show that one off. That's right, V4 Yamaha. Of course, how could I forget that in the mod? Well, I didn't. I just was saving it till the end for a little bit of a surprise. Now, of course, there's not really a way to add custom sounds to the game, so if you can tell me what engine this is actually from, do let me know in the comments. Obviously, I know because I set it up. It'd be just to see if people have a keen enough ear to tell. But of course, it is completely confirmed now that they are using the V4 for next year, so I couldn't leave the inline 4 sounds. The physics are unchanged, so still got the performance of the inline 4, although having looked at how the bike has gone on in testing and in the race weekends it has done, to be honest, the speed actually seems quite similar at the moment, so I don't think it really does need much of a change. But yeah, that is pretty much everything with the mod. Like I said, of course, if you spot anything or you want any changes, do let me know in the comments below. It's always handy to have the feedback from you guys. But it pretty much is ready. There's not much left to do. There is just like the final touches, like I said, the stuff like the rider performances, with the order and the menus. Oof, that's a pretty big moment on the curb there. Fixing a few little bugs that I spotted in the video, and I think also doing the calendar within career mode and in Grand Prix, and of course with that, the testing of career mode, because I am still scarred by the farce of last year with all the crashes and save file corruptions and stuff, so I will be probably testing in career mode to make sure that it doesn't break the game. But I think that'll pretty much bring this video to a close. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed that one. If you are new to the channel, please do like the video and subscribe, and let me know if you want to see any more sort of mod-related videos. I used to do a lot more of them, but obviously in the past couple of years, probably not done so many, and especially with the previews, usually I do them earlier on in the year, but everything got confirmed quite late, and I got everything together quite quickly, so didn't really have so much time to be making them. But like I said, hopefully you did enjoy that one. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I shall see you in the next one.